What's up, people? Welcome to Real Estate is Local. Today I'm talking with my friend and first referral partner, Kaiya Wilson. She's going to break down her new market in northern Georgia, talk about the Blue Ridge Mountain homes she's seeing, some cabins, different Airbnbs, all sorts of good nuggets. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to like and subscribe. But without further ado, let's get into Real Estate is Local with Kaiya Wilson.
All right, Kaiya, we're live. Welcome to Real Estate is Local. How you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, it's about time. This has been a long time in the making, I feel like, for the two of us.
It has been a couple months.
Yeah, I mean, we do lots of other things, together, talking all the time and stuff, but it's good to finally have you on the podcast. So let's jump right into it, right? Let's get into my favorite part, which of course is the guest spotlight. And so I know these answers, right? Like you and I, we're buddies. We chat. I'm so happy you and Noah are finally settled in Georgia. I'm excited to let everybody know about the new markets you're in and all that good stuff, right? But for the people that don't know who you are, what inspired you to get into real estate? And like, what was it like when it started? Like, how was that journey?
Yeah. So I was originally transitioning from New Orleans to Northern New York and could not find a job that I was satisfied with in the sports management career field because Northern New York is pretty rural. And I also absolutely despise having to ask any of my bosses for time off. And that really pushed me to get into real estate, which I had always thought about doing, but never really had the confidence to do. So I was already super uncomfortable moving from New Orleans to Northern New York. I was like, what the heck? Let's just jump into it. And I jumped into real estate.
Yeah. Well, and you some people jump in, right? And like, that's cute to say, like you dove in head first, right? Like, you moved to where I grew up, which, I mean, as you know, is kind of the middle of nowhere, kind of the frozen tundra a little bit. And then you went and did something most people don't do this. They normally start with a team, right? But you went in as a solo agent. How did that shape your business style? And then what are some lessons that you took from it that you could give to other solo agents or people who are thinking about it out there?
Absolutely. Looking back, I'm really proud of myself for starting as a solo agent. But if I had any advice for new agents getting in the business, I would say join a team. And I say that because being a solo agent, I basically learned while on the job. Original brokerage, Keller Williams, was very entrepreneurial based. And they gave me the tools I needed and the training I needed to understand real estate and get the job done. But at the end of the day, I learned while closing deals. So my first transaction was actually me purchasing my first house. And there were many mistakes I made in my first transaction, which was luckily my personal sale. And looking back, I definitely could have negotiated, a better sell price, more repairs. But I'm glad that I learned the lessons with my personal property rather than with a client. Being a solo agent, I really got to create a memorable and fun brand. So when people saw Pink, they thought Kaiya Wilson. But being on a team definitely will provide you with more guidance and maybe a few less mess ups and a few harder lessons that don't have to be learned the hard way.
Yeah. I mean, I did the opposite, right? I went the mentor route, and obviously you know how that went behind the scenes. Seems to have worked out okay for me so far. So teams are great, right? But what's been the biggest challenge, you would say, transitioning from being really on your own to now kind of having other people you can rely on and really do things with?
Absolutely. So that's kind of a two-part question for me, since I not only transitioned from a solo agent to a team, but I also transitioned to a totally different market. So the biggest challenge was adapting to how real estate is done in Georgia versus New York. So as far as being on a team, it's definitely been a challenge to do things in the team way and how real estate is done here. And it's really hard to implement it into my business because I really did have my own personal business. But most of the changes are for the better and work better in this market anyways. So the biggest challenge I've felt is giving up my pink for sale sign. I now have a team for sale sign, but all of my social media and marketing and everything I own is still pink. So I still did get to keep a piece of me, luckily.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember talking to you about branding the first couple meetings that we had, and pink just kind of seemed to naturally be the only thing that we talked about, I feel like. And
Yes.
Real Estate Barbie was born. I love it. That was so funny. Shout out to Real Estate Ken out there, my guy Noah. So, but yeah, so speaking of Noah, right? He is the lovely guy that decided to drag you up to Northern New York via the Army. And so,
Yeah.
how was that experience as a military spouse? And how did going there and having the Army take you there and buying a house there, how did that influence the way you help people like on your side of things now that are in your shoes?
Absolutely. I would say one of the best things that happened to my husband and I was him joining the military and us moving so far out of our comfort zone. And the biggest lesson I took from moving to New York and being totally on our own was building generational wealth and doing it while being in the military. Because when you're in the military, you move every, 2 to 5 years, really. And with having, BAH and the VA loan and all the benefits that come with that, you can, I wouldn't say easily, but you can definitely build generational wealth. And it's just so amazing the changes that it can make to your life. If you buy a home in a market and you make sure to buy a home that needs a few projects done and build equity in it, and then sell it when you leave and pocket all that money and put it into a nicer, bigger place, or keep it and rent it out and then sell it once it appreciates and you want to cash out. In New York, I really taught other military families how to do that because I bought a duplex. Colin's the one that showed me the way on how to buy and operate a duplex. And that was a very common housing choice up in Northern New York, triplexes, quadplexes that you can all buy with a VA loan. So I would say the biggest lesson I learned was generational wealth.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy to be a part of that. That was awesome. Yeah. I mean, to me, it just is always X's and O's, right? It's like, hey, like, does this work for your budget? Yes. Okay. Does this help you build wealth? Yes. Okay. Then what are we talking about? And that was like the conversation we had, and the light bulb went off, and then you bought that beautiful duplex and were able to sell that and make a little money afterwards. So I think it worked out, right? But like, okay, so obviously I know quite a bit about your career journey, being involved, right? But like, what do you think is one thing people don't know about your time up there and your time in Georgia and how it shaped you that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. So I'm actually going to go back to being in Georgia for college and then moving to New Orleans also for college. So I originally saw myself climbing the corporate ladder in sports management world. That's why I moved from Georgia to New Orleans to take a sports management job. I definitely put myself $50,000 into student debt for my bachelor's of sports management and my master's of business administration. I don't feel bad at all or regret getting a college degree because everybody's like, oh, you're a real estate agent now. You don't need that. I feel like my degrees give me an edge, especially my MBA. So I feel the MBA benefits me in so many ways, improves how professional, driven, determined I am. That was 6 years of schooling that I got done by 22 years old. So that was crazy. And
yeah. Pretty cool.
The MBA teaches you so much. I mean, Colin, you're going through MBA courses or you went through MBA courses and it teaches you business strategy and planning. And I am a business owner. Colin, you're kind of running your own business. Even being on Chris's team, you're still a business owner. Financially savvy, marketing, negotiation, network skills, the list goes on and on. So I feel like my biggest background and the thing that gives me the most edge are my degrees and my experience prior to real estate.
Yeah, I should probably take my last class. I can put that other degree over here and just get the thing done with. But yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, no, the MBA definitely worth it. I'm also a huge proponent of what you said about your first deal being the way you learn. Like I don't know any other way. You can sit there and try to listen to YouTube and you can try to do lots of things, but like you just have to do deals. Once you do them, it's like, oh, all right, that's a headache. Let's not do that next time. And
just rinse and repeat.
So, but all right. So I feel like we got a good idea about Kaiya, right? But let's talk about your market a little bit, right? Let's do the market minute. So what is the market? And can you break down some current trends in your area for some buyers and then for some sellers that they should know?
Absolutely. So I am located in Blue Ridge, Georgia, and I service all of the surrounding area. So basically everything north of Atlanta by like an hour and a half, 2 hours. That's my market area, but I'm going to specifically talk more about Blue Ridge today. So the average price point around here is $500,000, a little bit more than that. Not necessarily an easy area for first-time homebuyers like it was in Northern New York, but you can find first-time homebuyer friendly housing here in other surrounding areas and counties like Union, Gilmer, Key, Towns, all the surrounding areas. If you're interested in buying in Blue Ridge, just understand it is a very hot short-term rental market, and that is why our average price point is the way it is. It is a vacation town. Then sellers, just know you might be looking at houses that are all 3-bed, 2-bath, and there'll be like $300,000 difference between them. That's because the view is everything here. If your house has a view, it will sell for 10 to 30% more than a house that doesn't have any view. And it could be exactly the same 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet. So that's very important for sellers to know.
Wow. That is super interesting. I mean, I don't know how you would put that on an appraisal.
That's what I'm wondering too, because, I just moved here. I just got my license here in January. I wonder how the appraisers put a view on their appraisal, but they do it here. They figured it out. Every market has their quirks.
Well, that's funny, right? Well, hey, that's good to know though, right? Like that's a great tip for sellers. And then for those buyers, obviously, hey, if you're VA eligible, definitely look at that. I'm sure there's probably not a whole lot of USDA spots that work there, but hey, you never know.
Actually, there is. We are a very rural area. Just go on the USDA map. As long as I think you're outside the city limits, which is most of the area up here, it's kind of comparable to Northern New York in that way. Everything that was outside of Watertown City was USDA. I would say it's pretty similar here, maybe a little bit smaller, but...
And like, obviously the next question would have been like, hey, how's it compare, right? But I feel like we got a good idea, right? Like, I feel like where I came from, where you just left, is really first-time buyer paradise, I always like to call it.
Yeah.
Really is. The taxes are affordable and all that good stuff up there. So, hey, good position to be in as a real estate agent, tough position to be in as a buyer, but it is what it is. And it sounds like the short-term rental market is booming there, so I'll have to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, you definitely need to look into it. I know a good realtor.
Yeah, well, me too. So like, what do you think would have the highest demand in that area, right? Like, is it cabins up in the mountains that have the highest demand, or is it, who are the main buyers? Is it just people going into that market like me that are just trying to buy to put the thing on Airbnb, or is it?
Yep. So I would say it's definitely the highest demand house are luxury cabins and vacation style homes. And then the buyers are retirees and people interested in doing Airbnb short-term rentals and people looking for second homes when they need to escape from Florida or when they need to escape from New York. It's a big second home market.
Well, and that kind of rolls into the last question about the market, right? Like, have you seen any like key differences in like behavior, right? Like obviously, people at home tend to be a specific way. How are they in Georgia? Is it a little bit different interacting?
Yeah, so we already went through buyers in Northern New York. We're typically first-time home buyers. I would say they're typically cautious up there because the houses are so old. I mean, my house I bought up there was 1850. So we're talking about old houses. So we do have cautious buyers. Here we have particular buyers. They want a custom cabin. They want specific views. They want to be near a creek or one of the lakes, or they're very specific, peculiar. And if it's not the perfect thing, they are not going to buy it.
Interesting. Wow. We got to get you a Netflix show.
I know.
That's too funny. Yeah. And, my last question would have been, right, hey, like what advice would you give to, any military families looking at that in that area, right? But it sounds like buy something that with a view would be the advice.
Buy something with a view. Look into building. My husband and I are building here because if you priced out the kind of home that we would want to buy and live in compared to what we can build it for, it's a pretty big difference. So definitely look into building. Make sure your real estate agent is knowledgeable in vacant lots, because you do not want to buy a non-buildable lot. Land here is, around $50K an acre. So that definitely factors into it. So sometimes it is cheaper to buy, but definitely look into building. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, hey, bring your checkbook and bring a notebook to take notes and make sure that you understand the tasks you've got to get done. Yeah. That's what I always tell people. It's just a little bit more of a process. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's do some rapid fire questions, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like feel like I've got a good idea of what I'm like visualizing the Georgia mountains right now is what I'm doing. So I got a good idea about that. Obviously, we know you, Real Estate Barbie, still kicking it now, just North Georgia version.
Mm-hmm.
Let's roll into some rapid fire questions a little bit. And so I want to go more. Obviously, buyers are a little bit different in every market, right?
Absolutely.
But the truth is, like, you really have to build trust in this business. That's the only way. What's your fastest way to build trust with a new client?
My fastest way to build trust is really just being as knowledgeable as possible and being as understanding with them as I can be so that I understand exactly what their needs and wants are. And when you have somebody that treats you not like an object that they're going to get paid for, but treats you more as they're very empathetic and very understanding of what your needs are, it just wants to help and is knowledgeable, I feel like people feel very comfortable with me because I'm very good at comforting people.
Yeah, no, I get that vibe. Yeah. Shout out, baby Wilson. You're going to be a good mom for that. Going to be good at comforting. You. So hopefully you feel better soon. We got to get her out of there, get mama feeling a little bit better. But yeah. Okay. So obviously I love that because to me, trust is everything. I try to build it with my partners, with everybody, obviously clients as well. We talk about finances. So kind of need to trust me a little bit to tell me this stuff, right?
Absolutely.
What's one mistake you see other agents make all the time?
Well, that's a really good question. I think the biggest mistake you can make as an agent is running yourself ragged. And what I mean by that is everybody that contacts you that wants to see a house, you go show it to them immediately. I think it's really important that we do our due diligence and make sure those people have a pre-approval or in touch with a bank or have the proof of funds, because I did run myself ragged and I did meet up with strangers off the internet at vacant houses that I should not have done and put myself in dangerous positions. So
you better give Jean a shout out. You better give Jean a shout out for always having your back. That's for sure.
I do have to give her a shout out because if she was not with me, it could have been really bad. So anyways, to my other agents, let your loan officers do their, not really a background check, but make sure these people are actually serious about buying and make sure these proof of funds are real.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and obviously don't be afraid. We've done open houses together. I know Noah and I, the first couple, he was, wanted to meet me and all that. And then we were together, just make sure somebody else is with you if you're doing something like that or showing something.
Absolutely. Or has your location. I can't tell you the number of people that have my location at this point.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's a sketchy world out there. And there's just some weird interactions that you have with people for no reason sometimes too. But let's pivot back kind of to business a little bit, right? And so specifically systems, because I know, getting through the MBA program itself develops a system, especially while you were working full time, growing your business, doing all the things you were doing in a place where you literally knew nobody. What's one thing that you, if you would automate about your business and why?
Well, I feel like there is a lot of things about my business that can be automated. It's just making them automated. And I guess the biggest thing I struggle with right now is keeping in touch with clients from years ago. Yeah, I can put you on an email campaign and make sure that I send you valuable information, but I'm a little bit more personal than that. I want to send you an anniversary card every year. I would love to find a company that just automatically sent anniversary cards to my clients every year. They were pretty and go for it. I've also heard of agents that do 1 year anniversary gifts where they send a charcuterie board or a custom cutting wood board thing that somebody made. I would love if I could automate something like that and not have to constantly think, oh, this person bought this day, this person bought this day. Let me line it up. Let me line it up. Let me line it up. I would love if that could be a little bit more automated. So if you have any business recommendations of who I can reach out to for that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, we'll have to talk after this, at least for the handwritten letters. There's something I've crossed paths with in the past. Let's just say that. Okay. Yeah. No, I feel like that as well. I try, we've towards the end of the year, it gets a little bit slower. So what we try to do is do an annual mortgage review with clients if we can. Really try to understand if anything has changed, if their credit. Because you know how it goes. I mean, credit scores go up, down. People have
stuff
the real
estate
market. they have stuff that pops up and it's weird, but like nobody else really like calls them to talk about like their credit and other stuff. So kind of a unique thing for us to do, and it's nice to touch base. Sometimes we get referrals, and that's my favorite thing. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. Can't say no to referrals.
no, absolutely not. That's for sure. So we've had some fun talking about things that aren't necessarily controversial. Okay.
So let's mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I could like make that hot topic thing just like go across the screen. I'm sure I can. I haven't figured out how to do it yet. But the truth of it is, let's talk about tariffs. Okay. Ooh. Like what impact do you think this is going to have on the housing market? Okay. So like, let's go like your market specifically, and then let's go nationally. And I'll let you go.
Okay. So nationally and primarily, I think we are going to see higher construction costs, possible supply chain disruptions. And locally for my market, there's definitely going to be a higher price for the luxury cabins and vacation homes that are newly built that you're seeing on the market. And I think this because Blue Ridge has a lot of custom finishes. We have a lot of custom woodwork, stone, metal fixtures. And I do think the tariffs could definitely affect this and make it even more pricier than it already is.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair. I always say, I don't believe everything I hear. I don't think that you can get all the information because you can't truly negotiate if all the information is public. So why would they give it to us?
Yeah.
Think we may see some prices hang out where they're at or bump up a little bit, for the next 6 to 12 months. But after that, I've got no idea. I mean, let's see, right? I mean, let's roll the dice a little bit.
I mean, we have no idea how long these tariffs are even going to be in place. They haven't really given us, a time frame. And I think they're in place to address like concerns that the nation has. And we'll see if those concerns get addressed and they drop the tariffs. I mean, you never know what's going to happen with any new administration.
Yeah. A lot of it is talk too, which is amazing because it's like people are like, oh my God, interest rates. I'm like, guys, things don't magically work that way. If anything, what the markets do is like they're 2 weeks ahead. Like the stock market reacted to him talking about tariffs like 2 or 3 weeks before anything actually even happened. And the same thing happened with the bond market. The bond market's surprisingly doing well. Again, kind of the boring economic stuff, and we'll try to keep that out of this as much as we can, right? So like let's shift to like away from necessarily tariffs themselves to, but did I lose you? Are you still with me?
2 seconds, I'm here.
All right, cool.
North Georgia
no
Wi-Fi.
No worries. So let's pivot back to like just the new administration itself, right? Like, what do you think about real estate as a whole, like from the things that they're talking about wanting to do?
Yep. So I'm actually very excited about this topic. I feel like the new administration is very pro-business stance. And, this may lead to tax cuts and deregulation, potentially stimulating economic growth and encouraging real estate investments, which is good for everybody. And then the Federal Reserve is also trying to pivot and reduce interest rates. So while the tariffs aim to protect the domestic industries, they could, this is kind of going back to tariffs, sorry.
No, you're good.
Because that's part of the new administration. But so while tariffs can protect domestic industries, they could increase costs for imported building materials, potentially rising, construction expenses and affecting housing affordability. But with the tax cuts, I feel like it's all going to equal out at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm really, really praying those tax cuts get put into law because that would be
Me
great.
too.
I'm really just not a fan of, like, I have no issue paying taxes to help other people, but I just feel like when there's fraud and abuse and all these other things, it's just like, okay.
Exactly. And I feel like this is what this administration is trying to protect and maybe cut back on. So I'll be excited if they actually do it. That's one thing. Any administration can say something. You just got to wait for them to actually do it.
Yeah, I will give it this. I don't ever remember. I mean, I'm only 27, but I don't ever remember this much happening in 2 months or however long it's been. If that 30 days, 60 days, I don't ever remember all of this stuff. And again, it is what it is. Obviously, I don't really care here nor there. I'm really hopeful. I'm very bullish personally on the policies themselves. I think if you're going to slash taxes, then you can really levy tariffs historically. Obviously, I think they're just a tool personally for negotiation. I don't really think they're meant to make us billions and trillions like, he thinks potentially that they may. But the policy changes themselves, one thing, like listening to Trump talk. It's just interesting because he comes from the real estate background and in New York. And as we know, New York has lots of regulations. And so it's very interesting. Like his experience is getting through the red tape. So it's going to be interesting to see how his people in the cabinet and down go at the red tape and what they can do at the federal level and what happens there. I don't know. Personally, I'm very bullish on the outcome for real estate because I feel like if you make it more affordable for homes to be built, more of them will be built. And then that will really help with our inventory problem. But our friends that are builders, they run into a lot of things. I don't feel like, just talking to them, some of it's tough. Shout out Polk County, though, where I live now. They're great to work with. So, permitting and stuff like that has really been great for us with the different stuff we've done. So, it's really goes back to, I think, even local legislation anyway, but we could talk about that kind of at a different time, right? But like, are you preparing for anything like personally? Like, are you trimming back expenses? Are you in the business and obviously personal as well?
Yeah, no. So obviously I already said, I'm still building a house. My husband and I are going through that process right now. So yes, tariffs may increase the price slightly, but it doesn't scare me because I really don't think it's going to be that drastic. I strongly believe like no matter the administration that people will buy or sell, no matter the market, because they have to. I had to sell my New York house, or I could have rented it out, but we chose to sell. And now I have to buy a new place. I could rent, but I really enjoy building that equity, and being able to cash out on it. So I'll rent while I build, but I'm still going to build. And it really doesn't matter how unaffordable housing gets or how unaffordable people think housing is. People are going to have to buy and sell no matter what. We all have growing families. We all need to relocate. There's death, there's divorce, the list goes on and on. So am I preparing for anything? Not really. I trust in the real estate market. It will always do this. If you're going to invest, no matter what, it's going to be risky. But usually at the end, the outcome, if you do it smartly, it ends up pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think if you bought a home smart in 2008, you did a good thing. Like you're
Absolutely.
still benefiting from that. Like you're fine. If you bought a home stupid in 2008, you probably got hurt. If you bought a home smart in 2005, you're significantly benefiting if you never sold it, right? Like, but again, a lot of people heard Chicken Little and they sold. And so, it created a unique opportunity for a lot of the people I listen to all the time that have tons of rental properties and things. But I don't know. I personally think humans are always going to have to live in homes. So I don't know why we wouldn't buy them. Right. So,
and there's always going to, people are like, well, I could just rent. Well, somebody's going to have to own that house. There's always those investors that are going to have to own the house so that you can rent it. So I think that's a big thing too.
Yeah. I mean, I guess while we're on that topic, right, of renting in this new administration and all these new things, talk about how we got you out of the mindset of renting, right? Because you were on base, we were talking, you were really not into it when we started talking about it. Obviously you understood how real estate builds wealth, but you weren't really into the idea. Tell that story, how we went back and forth a little bit.
Absolutely. So if you are military, specifically military, and you live on base, you don't get to see your BAH. Our BAH for Northern New York was around $1,450 a month. I'd say roughly $1,450. And basically the government just never paid us that. They just immediately took it. And our place was the most outdated place in the world. It was so awful. We lived in a quadplex with awful neighbors. We had mold that they would never fix. It was the worst, most unsanitary place I've lived in. And that was really the biggest thing that I was like, okay, I want to have control over this. I want my own place, so I have control over this. I ended up buying a duplex that I got paid for. The upstairs renter paid me $900 a month, I think. My mortgage was only $1,300 a month. So, and then the Army was then paying us, our BH, our $1,450. We finally got to see that money. So I personally looked at it as the government was paying my mortgage, and it was a bonus that I had a renter, and that covered utilities and all of the expenses we put into the house, because we did have to renovate that house a little bit. It was a little old, needed quite a few things. But any job, whether you're in the Army or not, the Army does have BAH. But if you looked at the pay without getting BAH, it was only like $2,000 a month. And then if you got BAH, that was the extra $1,450. Any job pays for your housing. So some people think military has an upper hand with that. They really don't if you kind of look at it as a whole. So if you are using your hard-earned money to pay for somebody else's equity, yeah, it might be more comfortable, but is it really the best thing for your future wealth?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't say it any better other than the only thing I'll add is just tax piece, which kind of blew your mind when we really talked about it, because the BAH and the BAS, right? Which again, for those at home that aren't military, that means like you get paid for housing and then you get paid for food, which is rations, right? And so, if you are an officer, you get paid that automatically. But, if you're not and you're married and you're living off post, you get both of those things generally. Obviously, your rank determines how much of those things that you get. But those come to you through your paycheck, tax-free. It's a really huge advantage when you can take that money and you can then go use it to pay for real estate, especially when you have a tenant there.
Absolutely. And I got so many write-offs from doing all the improvements to the place that we rented out above us at the end of the year and being 1099. I really like write-offs.
Yeah, no, I mean, as an agent, they almost make you buy real estate if you read the tax code a little bit. Another agent had said that to me, and he's right. It's true. They do.
Absolutely.
You significantly benefit from that. I know personally, it's a huge goal of mine long term to be a real estate professional and hit that classification, but we'll get there eventually. For now, I'm going to stick in the loan space and keep helping people out over here. But yeah, well, like obviously, I feel like we flew by, right? So I want to get into the closing time segment, but we can take it a little bit longer, right? And extrapolate a little bit more. So let's talk about going back to just real estate itself, right? Like, what do you think of all the people, right? You've met inspectors and appraisers and lenders and other realtors and investors and wholesalers and all these other people. Like, what do you think the best piece of advice that you've gotten, like from any of them, that has helped you with business and in life?
So I've got two. The first one is show your value, prove to people that your efforts and time is worth what you were being compensated, whether you're an attorney or inspector or a real estate agent. And don't let people walk all over you. And that goes for third parties walking over agents, other agents walking over agents, clients walking over you. A lot of times newbie agents don't get respect, newbie inspectors, newbie loan officers, whatever may be. So just always be professional, show them you know what you're doing, and don't be scared to ask questions from your mentors or people that have been in the space for a long time that you trust. And my second thing is set your working hours. Make sure your clients know that you're not going to answer the phone at 3 a.m. because that's ridiculous. If they want to text you at 3 a.m., that's fine, but they better not be calling you at 3 a.m. Do go above and beyond for your clients, no matter what kind of professional you are. Don't show any houses without a pre-approval or proof of funds. That's specifically for my real estate agent friends.
I wonder who gave you that last piece of advice.
Yeah.
I feel like I know his name. I think it starts with Chris and then ends with an O at the end. I think he gave you that piece of advice a while ago. But yeah, I mean, that piece right there, I don't know why you would ever show a house without somebody being pre-approved. It just blows my mind. Even if it's my cousin, my uncle, I don't care. Like, you really don't have any business being at that house. You don't have a buyer. I can't buy.
And you're putting the sellers out. You're putting your agent out. Like, imagine showing a house to somebody that can't buy for the next 2 years because they don't even have a job or something. Like, it's just ridiculous. You just put everybody out.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting, little side question for you. So we had this come up a few days ago down here with an instance where a buyer had reached out and was just very adamant against the buyer broker agreement, right? And that's kind of a new little piece there. So why don't we real quick in the closing talk about that? Like, for when you're working with buyers, what is a buyer broker agreement and why is it that you can't just come from a different market, not sign a buyer broker agreement, have an agent show you a house now? Explain that a little bit.
Absolutely. So the National Association of Realtors, NAR, passed basically a law saying a real estate agent cannot show you a house without the buyer agency agreement signed. And this is to protect everybody. So this is to protect the buyer so they understand exactly what this agent's compensation should be. Typically, it's 2.5% to 3%. Some markets may vary. There's no set compensation. There may be set compensation by a brokerage, but there's no nationally set compensation, and there can't be. We can't collude on that or whatever. Brokers can't collude on that. But typically, you'll see between 2 and 3%, 2.5%, 3%. And this lets the buyer know if you want to see, let's say, a for sale by owner house that's offering zero compensation, if you want your agent to represent you on that house, you may be on the hook for that 2.5%, 3%. Now, in your offer, you can ask for the seller to pay that, but it really just gives the buyer the best outline and all of the knowledge, and they did it to be more transparent, to be totally honest. I recently, this past weekend, had somebody reach out, want to see multiple houses. I said, I'm more than happy to show these houses with you. Let's go over the buyer broker agreement because I legally cannot show you these houses without it being signed. And she literally told me, no, my daughter's a real estate agent. I know that's not true. I'm not signing anything, and hung up. And I was like, that's the first time I've ever encountered that. I've never encountered that before. That was crazy because if she had just listened to me, she would have understood it.
Yeah, no, same exact scenario. And then the funny thing is we know the listing agent on the side of it. So then all of a sudden a showing got scheduled. So it was interesting thought because if there's agents out there showing people without those, it's I think that's worse than the pre-approval thing a little bit.
Yeah, it's awful. And she probably will go find somebody that will show her houses without having that signed. Did that take business away from me? Yes. But who knows if she'll even actually buy. If she's not serious enough to sign a document with me, she's not serious enough to sign multiple documents with me when I go to put in an offer on her behalf and whatnot. So that's just how I look at it. And you can set them for 24 hours. If you want to meet the agent first, just set it for 24 hours or just set it for that address. And then you can lengthen the agreement if you decide you like that agent. You're not stuck with that agent forever. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to get the person to understand. It's just hey, sign a 24-hour agreement. We'll show you whatever as long as you're pre-approved or can show me proof of funds.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I feel like that's just such a huge mistake for somebody to try to take the easy way because it's just you're just going to wind up getting burned because if you think somebody's going to not sign an agreement and then still work with you you're
listing agent or seller people that had listings, they always had to sign something with the agent. They always had to give us permission to sell their house, and now basically we just need the buyer's permission to show them houses. That's really how I look at it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, in that note, I guess it's safety-wise, probably not a bad thing to have an idea and know who's going through who's home and when and stuff like that. Sure, right? So, yeah, okay. Well, now let's talk. Normally, I ask people, to recommend a book or a podcast, right? But you and I, we've done a couple different books we've read, messing around with that, and then obviously, anytime I listen to something good, I send it your way and vice versa, right? So let's talk about both, right? Let's talk a book first. That helped you with business and in real estate. And then let's talk a podcast that you'd recommend as well.
Yeah. So my favorite book, and I know I was with Keller Williams, but I feel like this is a lot of real estate agents' favorite book, is the MREA. And if you're a KW agent, you know this book inside and out, but it's fantastic for any real estate agent because it shows you business models, and these business models actually work are implemented every single day by multiple agents. See, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Look at that. Bright red book. And it teaches you how to get from one step in your business to the next. So I think it's really important for any agent. Read it multiple times. They just came out with MREA 2. So it's more updated for current market trends. So that is by far my favorite book.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. That's solid. That's a solid recommendation for sure. I mean, now that's more real estate agent, right? Let's go. If you just had to say business, right, itself, what do you think? Business.
What's the one that you just sent me? You sent me it last year. What is that called?
By PBD? Patrick by David?
Yeah. What's that called? What's the name of that one?
No, I got it right here. Hold
I can't believe I'm blanking because you asked me that out of the blue. But I did that talked about the guy starting his own business and he basically came from nothing. Is very inspirational.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I got to look this up because
you sent that to me. You sent it to me on Amazon. It's in your Amazon orders. I wish I had it here, but I don't have my bookshelf up yet.
Well, it's Choose Your Enemies Wisely.
Choose Your Enemies Wisely.
I recommend.
Yes.
You stole my book recommendation because that's what I was going to do.
Well, I'll let you recommend the podcast then.
Yeah, obviously this podcast is awesome too, but yeah, Choose Your Enemies Wisely is interesting. It like really helps you understand the mindset of business and like using almost like an athletic look, like an athlete's look at business, right? Like, you know, like Kobe's not Kobe without the guy over my shoulder right here, you know, trying to catch MJ. He's just not. So that's definitely a good book. The other book I always love to recommend is the Tax and Legal Playbook by Mark J. Kohler. Always recommend that. It is the easiest book I've ever read that has taught me so much about LLCs and business forming and investing with a business and all the different things you need to have and do and all of that. So that would be my recommendation there. And then for the podcast, the PBD podcast is pretty awesome, but a lot of his older stuff is more business oriented. So, you know, for business, I have been tending to listen to the All In podcast a little bit. Have you, with Chamath and those guys on there, David Sachs and those guys, they're pretty brilliant people. So I try to listen to some intelligent business people when I can.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Love it.
Okay.
I actually need to listen to more podcasts. I'm kind of really bad about that. I kind of tend to jam out to music instead, but I do want to get more into that.
Yeah, I can't do music right now. It's just, we're trying to grow a window washing company that a couple of partners and I are ventured in on. So like at night, I kind of am learning a lot of different things to try to help them grow and streamline that type of venture. So it's been kind of fun. It's been kind of fun to learn a little bit more about Google Ads and things. And obviously the social media part is a huge part, but you know, I feel like that gives you an edge as well. Would you say, you know, in your market, like last quick question for you, like in your market, do you feel like anybody is doing video?
You know, I really don't see a lot of agents here on social media. And I have even made videos of other agents' listings for my own personal media, for my own personal social media, but then I'll send it to them and they never post it. So it's actually kind of funny. I don't really see any of the agents here on social media like I am. Now, there are thousands of agents up here. You know, Northern New York had like 400 and only like 200 of them were active. So maybe I haven't stumbled on them yet. I see most of them on Facebook, which is great. Facebook is really how I got my business started. But as far as like TikTok and Instagram, I think I've seen one other team on social media. So I'm really hoping that I grow it here very rapidly. So I can be that top agent on social media in North Georgia.
Yeah. Well, knowing how well you did at home, I think you'll be okay for sure. You know, do you want to talk about that a little bit though? Like what does you having a little bit of a social media like repertoire, you know what I mean? Like what is that? How does that give you an edge selling somebody's house?
So I feel like my social media is my resume as a real estate agent. Instead of like giving people my stats or giving them a one pager about me, I feel I love to send people my TikTok and say, this is what I do. This is what I do for my sellers. I'm constantly rearranging their house / staging it. I show that on my social media. I show open houses. I show how dedicated I am to getting your house sold, getting it out there in front of the right people. I'm very big into hashtag optimization and making sure I have the best hashtag so it's getting in front of the people that it needs to get in front of. And honestly, at the end of the day, I look at it as my resume and all my clients are always very excited to follow me. I've even found with my pink for sale sign, I will have people in the neighborhood start following me on TikTok and they'll message me or DM me or comment and be like, OMG, you have a house in my neighborhood for sale. I'm like, OMG, let me know when you want yours to sell. Like, I don't know. It's my resume.
Cool. Well, so where can people find you on TikTok and all over the place?
I am on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I do love LinkedIn still. So I'm very big into LinkedIn. Hopefully I'll get YouTube up and going. We're going to get my husband a drone and he's going to start videoing me. So we'll see how that goes. But
all right.
That is TBD.
I like it. Get them involved. Get them active, right? You know, it's funny. My significant other is a real estate agent now. And so one of the new jobs I've discovered is being the sign guy for open houses. I gave Noah a lot of crap, and I gotta hand it to him. It's not a lot of fun. It's kind of the worst part of the open houses is doing the signs.
Yeah, because you have to get out and do all the directional signs, and we do balloons. So we have 3 balloons per sign, red, white, and blue, because we're Remax. So I have that on my social media too. My husband putting signs into ice frozen ground in northern New York and beating it in with a hammer. Ridiculous.
I'm laughing because I feel like I can. I've shoveled enough times to laugh at that.
Yep.
So, but well, listen, Kai, I just want to say again, thanks so much. Obviously, we're going to do a lot more, hopefully together in the future, but we'll post the social media stuff down below. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and thank you so much for stopping by.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.